We've got a new Splatfest landing in July, and I'm a fan of the question. Topical, personal, and opinion based, lots of interesting aspects to argue. I'm excited to get into it, but there's an intro screen to play first, so. I'll preface this by saying that I really don't think there's any correct answer here, because all of these would be amazing to bring some friends to, and there are a lot of personal preferences and attachments that will lean individual people in one direction or another. I've borne witness to Disney adults. I know I'm not unconvincing them from putting on the mouse ears. But there are definitely some objective factors to consider here that I do think will make a difference for a lot of people. I'll start with Palace. The biggest advantage this option has by far, other than the fact that it's Shiver's team of course, is that there are indoor accommodations. There will all but certainly be a swimming pool, maybe some tennis courts, other ways to get outside, but you're not worried anywhere near as much about sunburn. And that becomes more and more valuable the more you're trying to make the most of this opportunity, the more time you're trying to spend in these places. The beach, for example, has some of the most calming, rejuvenating properties out of the bunch, but if you're trying to stay out there for a full day, you'd better break out that SPF 3000 or it's going to get more uncomfortable the longer you stay. Skin cancer is really dangerous, folks, and I've seen sunburns go from first to second degree burns before when people weren't being careful and overtanned. Don't cook yourselves. The Palace gives you the option not just to gallivant and frolic outside, but also to stop inside for a break. You probably have some kind of access to fancy drinks, maybe have an in-house service to make you a slushie to cool down with. And you could even just take a nap in what's probably the comfiest bed you've slept on in your life if you needed to. And it wouldn't feel like a waste of the experience, because that's one of the things being offered to you. You could make a thing out of going around and trying all the different beds in all the different rooms to find your favorite. Forget pillow fights. That could be a strategic pillow war, island hopping from bedroom to bedroom to achieve victory. This option gives you more versatility with regard to the schedule for the day, because you can host guests, throw parties, find activities to keep yourself occupied, and relax and rest up, all from the same place. While there are a lot of options at the theme park and at the beach, the Palace offers more flexibility overall because it's designed as a home base first. There'll just be more things you're covered for, fewer things you'll need. If someone gets hurt, you'll have band-aids. If you want to charge something or plug something in, you'll have outlets. If it gets too hot outside or starts raining, you can just go inside and shut the windows. It's definitely the most consistent experience of the bunch, in that it's the hardest for the weather to ruin. For all its versatility, though, staying in a palace is still not the same as going out into the world and getting fresh air. There's certainly some element of exploration there that would be exciting, but compared to a long, unbroken stretch of beach or winding your way through a maze of rides and games and food vendors at a theme park, there probably isn't quite as much to cover by comparison. Palace may be consistent and practical, but if you're really after the experience of going out and finding something cool, you're probably looking more for the other options. My personal least favorite is probably the theme park, but also not having to wait in line addresses one of the biggest problems with theme parks in general. You could be a lot more certain when you went that you'd be able to see everything the park had to offer. I'm usually just not interested enough in a 45-second roller coaster to wait an hour and a half to ride it. Taking away the wait raises my eyebrows. This would have more amenities than the beach. There'll be plenty of restaurants and bathrooms everywhere, and there are places where you could stop for first aid if you need it. But it's also much more expansive and more of an exploration than the Palace would be, with lots of fresh air and a livelier feeling than you'd get indoors. Normally I would complain about the expense of a theme park, talking about how it feels like every single fun thing you can do is paywalled and how that creates this constant value assessment where the fun is sucked out of every little thing you do by the question of whether you're getting enough fun per dollar. But since we've got these places all to ourselves, presumably some obscene amount of money has been spent already, and the comparatively small charges of some overpriced food and drink would be irrelevant by comparison. That or there's magic involved, I guess, but if there's magic, I would hope we're using it for something more imaginative than getting us into outdoor Chuck E. Cheese's. One of the things I think would feel very odd about the theme park is that theme parks are designed to handle a very high volume of people. So without that high volume of people, they're going to function differently. It's going to feel off, walking through large spaces designed to handle large crowds and seeing them empty. Seeing performers and ride attendants and other employees standing around idly instead of being engaged by the people around will feel off, like something's wrong. While not having to wait in line will be great, riding a roller coaster with just you and a single friend next to you means that you're going to be a lot more self-conscious about, say, screaming on the ride than if the cars around you were full and everyone was doing it. I'd probably prefer to have the park open to a smaller number of people rather than locking it out completely, or to maybe have it be open exclusively to people from a community I was a part of. Splatoon Community Day would be so much better than having the whole place empty. That's basically what the water park lands have been, just indoors with a tournament attached. The theme park, more than any other option, is going to be more about where you're at than who you're with or what you're doing, which is why I think it would be the most polarizing. If the fully concentrated mass media marketing exercise aimed directly at your eyeballs is a tiring experience for you, you'll tolerate the place more than you'll enjoy it. But if you really love roller coasters and carnival food and bright colors and making itineraries and planning your way through every little detail, this might be your mecca. Some people do the best they can to live at these parks more than they live at their own homes and know the logistics on the back end and have spreadsheets on their computers for calculating optimal visit days. I think the amount that people like theme parks probably balances out to even with the others, but the fans of it have quietly reached levels of devotion rivaling those of K-pop stans, and have become a truly terrifying force in our society. If the magnitude of their enjoyment were what the Splatfest measured, like, say, if instead of voting we had ratings on a Likert scale, I'd be putting my money on Fry. On paper, there are a lot of aspects of the beach that actually make it pretty undesirable. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the least popular option, not that I've been especially good at predicting that before. For one thing, the average beach isn't actually that great. Some beaches don't even have sand, they just have rocks all the way to the water, making it really uncomfortable to walk, let alone run along them. Some beaches have really murky water that make you really uncomfortable because you're not sure what's in there with you. And there are some genuine dangers in the water, though maybe not exactly what you're imagining. I'm not super worried about sharks. More people in the US die in car accidents in a month than the total number of fatal unprovoked shark attacks that have happened in the entire world for as long as we've been reliably counting them. Jaws is not real. I'm more worried about getting stung by a jellyfish or stepping on a sea urchin. Invisibility through the water is just about all that's going to protect you from either of those things. Some people are Anakin Skywalker who hates sand. You know, it's just occurring to me that he developed that opinion having grown up on Tatooine, like the desert planet. Man, that's rough, buddy. Anyway, I get that it's not a super comfortable thing to get in certain places and that it's hard to get off you when you leave the water because water washes it off but also makes it stick more. Ocean water is just less fun to swim in. There's less visibility, you can't trust it to be clean at all. It's going to have a lot of salt in it, and you're constantly going to have to deal with the rhythm of the waves, even when you don't want to. Like, sometimes you're trying to surf them, but sometimes you're not, and that's frustrating. But man, there's just something about sea air and hearing the waves and the seagulls that's reassuring and invigorating in a way that's hard to understand until you've been there. People used to prescribe a day at the beach as medicine, thinking that if it feels that good to be there, it must be good for you. It probably was at least good for a lot of people's mental health, if not for exactly the medical benefits the doctors thought it had. There may not be the same vast menu of things to do, but I can spend hours and hours trying to catch waves on a bodyboard, or building an elaborate sandcastle, or looking for interesting shells or whatever else washes up and just lose track of the time. And that's if I'm by myself, let alone if there are other people around to talk to, or throw a frisbee with, or play volleyball with, or just sit in the shade and sip a drink next to. It's enough. And it's just one of the wonderful places on Earth to exist in for a while. Just again, sunscreen, everyone. I heard there's some contingent of people that are politically opposed to sunscreen these days. It'd be a camp notably lacking in dermatologists, I'm sure. But yeah, let's not increase skin cancer rates, please. As always, I'm going to be going with the flow for Silly Comp Sunday purposes. But I think my vote would probably go to Palace if I had to choose. Beach at a close second. It's been a nice Splatfest to think about. Got me excited for some summertime grass touching, even if I'm not exactly living in a palace or near a beach these days. Happy summer, everyone. Make sure you get yourselves out of the basement into some fresh air every now and then. It's good for you.